I know it's running late, so what I'm going to do is just quickly go through the slides. This is a very exciting topic, but at the same time very confusing, right? There's now CBD-infused everything. I mean, seriously, right? From creams, personal care, to health drinks and everything. So it's kind of a little bit of Wild West. So what I'm going to address today, actually, it's from one of the chapters in my book, Live Long, Live Strong. And so if you stick it out at the end, I'm going to do a little raffle. So I have 10 books I'm going to give away. And then, and if you don't get those 10 books, I'm sorry, but I do have a 20% off coupon over there on that table to the far right. So, before I begin, I want to acknowledge those wonderful doctors. Dr. Warga, he's such an amazing, heartfelt guy, isn't he? So thank you, Dr. Warga. And then Dr. I think it was Priceman, right, who talked about this amazing immunotherapy. It's interesting because in my book, it's an integrative approach. So that means I talk about immunotherapy. I talk about also if, in fact, immunotherapy isn't available to you, acupuncture has been shown to increase immune cytokines as well as the CD4 helper cells. So these are the T helper cells that, very similar to what we're talking about. So again, what we're going to talk about is today, what is cannabis? And then I believe we have two people here who are going to talk about their experience, right? So, but anyway, so cannabis actually started in China. It's part of Chinese medicine. It's called dama, and has been used as far back as 8,000 years ago. Documented use, mostly used as clothing, paper, and medicine. All right, and now linen, most people probably don't know that linen actually comes from hemp, which is basically the non-THC containing marijuana plant, basically. All right, this particular book, the very first book on Chinese medicine, contains 360 herbs, and it's called Shenrong Bencao, Materia Medica. And cannabis was one of the herbs listed as, so it has been described. The benefits are very interesting. So let's read the benefits. Literal translation from the book. Cannabis benefits the five viscera, the organs, by repairing strains to the five viscera, treats the 7 injuries. Overeating injures the spleen, rage injures the liver, dampness injures the kidneys, cold injures lungs, sadness injures heart, wind injures body, fear injures the will to live. And it breaks up blood stagnation and cools heat, which is inflammation in Chinese medicine, right? It continues, again, this very old 5,000-year book, right? Excess consumption causes one to see ghosts and run about frenetically. Let's see, I'm looking at the audience here. I think I can safely assume that most of you have tried it in your younger days. And you probably had a little paranoia, like, and by the way, THC does do that. I treat these youngsters who come in, they're 15, 16 years old, they have panic attacks. And I get the parents out of the room. I said, okay, let me guess. Your first panic attack was after you smoked pot. The kid looks at me and goes, well, how do you know? Don't tell my parents. I said, of course I'm not going to tell your parents, but, let me explain to you why. So anyway, so yes. But when you talk about, anyway, consumption in small doses, interesting. Frees the spirit and consciousness, enlightens the body. Wow. Think about that for a second. Now, I'm not here to sell, cannabis. I don't sell cannabis. I just want to make a statement. I've done a lot of research. I consult and I help patients with dosing and all that. But again, this is recorded use of what cannabis was. The seed, or mazi, possesses sweet flavor and neutral properties, strengthens core, benefits qi, this is energy, right? And retards aging as an elixir for immortality. Now, if we think about it, modern science actually backs this up. that hemp seeds and oil contains a rich supply of omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants. So it's really considered a superfood, and I literally eat it every day. Don't worry, these seeds do not contain THC. There's no psychoactive component. You're not going to get high from it. Too bad. Now, back in 2nd century AD, we had a very famous Chinese physician by the name of Hua Tuo. He was like a world-famous surgeon. And by the way, he used cannabis as an anesthetic. Now, that's not surprising. In fact, what he did was he mixed the cannabis resin with wine and used it to reduce pain during surgery. The Chinese term for anesthesia literally means ma zui. Ma means cannabis, and zui means intoxication. Cannabis intoxication is a word in the Chinese vernacular for anesthesia. So this sort of ties it back to how long it has been in use in Chinese medicine. All right, so what Chinese medicine used it for, though, is its anti-inflammatory property, anti-seizure, anti-spasmodic, and analgesic, of course, gets rid of pain, and also the psychoactive properties. So it's been in use continuously for 5,000 years. This is not something that just popped up in the 70s, like most of us thought it was. It's been in continuous use. Now, in order to understand how that relates to our body, we need to understand this system called the endocannabinoid system, right, or ECS. Basically, there are receptors in the body, throughout the body, not just your brain, that basically binds, right, it's a receptor, so receives signaling, the signaling from certain substance that will help you regulate your physiology, including immune function, your ability to fight off viruses and even cancer cells, for example, okay? So the runner's high, right, when you exercise, you can induce. By the way, we produce these endocannabinoids, right? We produce it all the time. In fact, what are the other ways to produce it, right? We've got other ways that I'll show you. But the substance, there are two substances that binds to these receptors, right? They're basically, I won't go through it, AEA, you just have to remember, or 2AG. Those are the two actual substance. Now, it's interesting because the AEA, you know, it stands for arachidinol ethanol lamine. There's another easier name for it. It's called anandamide. Anandamide. It's named after the Sanskrit word for bliss. Oh, that sounds pretty good, right? Blissful, because it does make you feel blissful, right? And this 2AG. So those are the two main substances. The body has all these, like I mentioned, the endocannabinoid system. The receptors are everywhere. Brain, lungs, the blood vessel, liver, colon, immune system, your bones, your muscles, reproductive organs, pancreas, spleen, etc. All right. And then there are two receptors. Two main kind of receptors, CB1, CB2. No, they're not radio, but they are actual receptors. Although, it sounds pretty good. Radio receptors, right? So anyway, so the CB1 receptors are mainly essentially in the brain, and then CB2 are throughout your body, including your immune system. Okay? And so certain substances will actually activate these particular receptors. So now, how do we get more of what I call the anandamide or the AE, right, as well as the AG2? Those are the two substances that kind of makes you feel blissful, but at the same time regulate your body function. We discovered that acupuncture can do exactly the same. Exercise the runner's high, when you meditate deeply, when you take omega-3 fatty acids, when you get a massage. Wow, massage. You know, I always wonder about that. My wife, who's not here, if I told this to everybody, she'll get really mad at me, but she hates exercise. She absolutely hates exercise. But you know what she does? She has gotten a massage every single week for the last 24 years that we've been married, without fail. And you know what? She claims that it actually moves her blood around, so she doesn't have to exercise. What kind of excuse was that? But anyway, apparently she's gotten a lot of high from it. Okay, so, but no, seriously, the touch is wonderful, right? Qigong and yoga. Finally, also leafy greens. Eating leafy greens. So when you go home today, if you miss everything I said, just eat some leafy greens, right? Kale, I know how you love kale. I actually hate kale, but it's like, why would anybody eat this? It's so tough. Apparently, I forgot to massage it. I'm supposed to massage it and make it high. Okay. All right, so the electroacupuncture has been shown to significantly increase this AEA and level and the CB2 receptor activities. And remember, the receptor CB2 is more in the periphery, whereas CB1 is more in the brain, right? And then it restores impaired CES, in particularly the CB1 receptor. So in summary, what it does is it essentially resets the system so that your receptors work again. All right, now, that's the inside. Now let's talk about the outside, because I know how you've been exercising every day and you're getting your high. So then you go, well, how do I get my natural bliss, right? And we're not talking about actually blissful and getting high. We're really talking about what can it do for me therapeutically, with cancer and with all the symptoms you're experiencing, nausea, vomiting, neuropathic pain, neuropathy, for example, low energy. So all of that can be helped. So the exogenous, which means on the outside, coming from the outside, right? So this is cannabinoids, there are compounds that basically from cannabis plant, for example, that have been shown to do the same, modulate, right, the physiological system in the brain, in your body, including your nerves, your immune system, and your hormonal system. All right. Now, the evidence show that cannabinoids can reduce inflammation, modify pain perception, increase appetite, and prolong deep sleep. Now, I already mentioned all that earlier when I talked about Chinese medicine. This is what we've been using it for all these years. But it's very confusing because now if you walk into a store, I actually resisted going into MedMen for a long time. And I finally I'm going to just check it out and see what it's all about. I was overwhelmed. And I know my cannabis, and I was completely overwhelmed by the variety and everything that's on there. But so, now, cannabinoids, what exactly is cannabinoids? So again, these are the substances, right, that binds and activates those receptors in your body. And so you hear names like CBD, which is the most common one you hear, and then there's THC, then there is THCA, there's CBG, CBN, CBC, THC, CBD, sounds like drugstores. CVS? No, CBC. Okay, well, whatever it was, anyway, there's many more. In fact, there are 120 different cannabinoids. Now this is why you walk into a MedMen and you just want to turn around and go out because it's too overwhelming. Anyway, but what I don't like is that they've got lots of salespeople and they are advising you what you should take. I'm a little puzzled because it's kind of like, wait a minute, these are very potent stuff. And you've got these clerks who are, I'm not faulting people who work there, but they haven't received a whole lot of training and they don't have a PhD behind their name. I'm not saying you have to have a PhD, but it's nice if you have studied this and then you can advise people appropriately. But, well, anyway, so the best studied cannabinoids are basically THC, right, and CBD. THC is the psychoactive compound, right, in cannabis. It basically makes you high. Remember the 70s? Well, maybe you're all too young. Dr. Warga said that he's been in the field for 30 years. I've been in the field for 35 years, so I'm a little older than him. And the 70s were, it was a blur. I don't recall that now. So anyway, it's in hemp plants. So I now want to make a distinction. Cannabis usually refers to the general name for the plant, but also usually is referred to the plant that has THC, which is more psychoactive, whereas hemp or industrial hemp, which is linen, paper, by the way, China invented paper on hemp. Remember that. That's hemp. That's where paper came from originally. All right, so paper and medicine. Oh, and food as well, right? Now, there is no THC, or for practical purposes, it's less than 0.3%. And that's why it's technically legal, because it doesn't have the psychoactive component. All right, CBD is the non-psychoactive component, right, of this, and it's present in abundance in both cannabis and hemp, although it's more abundant in hemp. So industrial hemp is what we're talking about. By the way, my father has a cabin in Oregon, in Ashland, and I'm like, first time I was there in a long time, a few years ago, I'm driving down this highway, and I'm like, oh darn, I must ran over a skunk. What's going on here? Why does it stink like a skunk here? And I look to my left, and there are hemp fields. I look to my right, there are hemp fields, and it's called the Cannabis Highway, which I had no idea. I just stumbled upon it, and I thought, oh my God, how 5 years have, like, changed everything. But anyway, first, everything when we talk about what we want to introduce to people, we want to make sure it's safe. We absolutely have to be safe, because ultimately people's lives are at stake here and health's at stake. So, first, do no harm. This is what we all take as the oath of Hippocratic oath when we graduate from medical school. First, do no harm. And then we promptly forget. No, seriously. I mean, we have to make sure, right, that there's no... But this is one of the problems that we're encountering in Western pharmaceuticals today, is that there are so many side effects. And we've forgotten this Hippocratic oath that we've taken. First, do no harm. How can we help patients with as little side effects as possible? All right? So the Institute of Medicine states that marijuana, or the cannabis, is not completely benign substance. However, it is a powerful drug with a variety of effects, except for the harms associated with smoking. Of course, if you smoke, you may get some lung disease. The adverse effects of marijuana use are within the range of effects tolerated for other medications. So first, you establish that okay, it's generally safe. However, interestingly, a big study done by, it's called the Awareness Warning Network Annual Report, all right? The drug awareness states that there has never been a death recorded from the use of cannabis. Ever. Never. I mean, it's remarkable that there is this one substance that have been used by, maybe half of the room here. I don't want to falsely accuse you, although you look a little dazed at this moment, but it could be because, it's late. All right, so studies show no tolerance to CBD have been developed, no dose escalation, meaning you have to take more and more and more, right? There is that tolerance level, right? No evidence of drug dependency or withdrawal, notable psychoactive effects in patients taking CBD for 1 to 4 years. Well, CBD, remember, is not psychoactive anyway. So it's perfectly safe. No reports of abuse or diversion of the CBD product has occurred in clinical trials, long-term extension studies, or general prescription use. This stuff doesn't get you high, so why would you divert it for anything? I mean, you can't abuse this. Do you know what I'm saying? No. So that's something. So, when I did my research, this is over the last 10 years, there wasn't a lot to look at, but there's more and more now. That's exciting. And interesting, ironically, a lot of the research has been in China. China holds most of the patents on hemp and cannabis and marijuana. Even though it's outlawed in China, they hold most of the patents. It's been well researched. All right, documented benefits. Epileptic seizure, there's a drug that's FDA approved called Epidiolex, and it's for seizures with children. Very, very effective. Neuropathic pain and inflammation, so people who have neuropathy definitely benefits from this. Muscle spasticity, there's a drug called Sativex. I mean, let's be a little more original here. Sativex, but anyway, it's excellent, and the drug has been in use for spasticity for MS patients, multiple sclerosis. Chemo-induced nausea, vomiting, insomnia, anxiety, Crohn's, and irritable bowel syndrome. Wow, this is really starting to get very exciting here. So, what about cancer? What does it do for cancer? Let's look at the evidence. Experimental studies show that the activation of CB receptors by cannabinoids is anti-tumorigenic. In most cases, it inhibits tumor cell proliferation, induces apoptosis. Apoptosis means cell death. And blocks angiogenesis. What is that? Growing little blood vessels to feed the tumor. That's called angiogenesis. Right? So that's why there are drugs that are called anti-angiogenesis. It's a mouthful, but it means that block the blood vessel from forming and therefore not feeding the tumor. That's what you want, right? And tumor invasion metastasis in vivo. In vivo versus in vitro. In vivo means that live organisms. Could be a rat, could be a human, could be, not just tissue in the lab. Studies show that these anti-cancer effects appear to be dependent on cancer types and drug dose. However, there's still too few clinical studies that have been published on humans so far. But what we do know is this, on breast cancer. According to researchers at Medical University of Vienna, CBS, which is cannabinoids, are already administered to breast cancer patients at advanced stages of the disease, but they might also be effective at earlier stages to decelerate tumor progression. Okay, so Europeans are doing a lot of research on cannabis and CBD and THC and so forth. Again, because it's been in use, as far as I know, Amsterdam. For how long? I don't know. But I know for sure in the 70s they were already legal in Amsterdam. Anti-cancer properties. Latest in vitro in vivo studies that present data regarding the anti-proliferative, which means that, that spreading, right? Anti-spreading. Pro-apoptotic, that's a mouthful, but, in other words, induces cell death. Cytotoxic, toxic to cancer cells. Anti-invasive, anti-angiogenesis, anti-inflammatory, and immunomodulatory properties of CBD together with their mechanism of action. So, in summary, what it means that, okay, you know what? There are some studies here that is showing some very interesting stuff against cancer. But we can't outright just come out and say, hey, CBD cures cancer. THC cures cancer. Can't say that. What we can say is that there is a potential. This is apoptosis. So what happened is that, the CBD is introduced. It basically causes the mitochondria to not work as well in the cell. And then this ROS is basically oxidants. These are like, reactive oxygen species, free radicals, in another word. And then finally, the cell just shrivels up and dies. It's also been found to be adaptogenic and a modulator. So several studies have described it as a multi-target molecule acting as an adaptogen. So adaptogen, what it does is it helps your body to right itself when it's off balance or when it's under stress. And we all know that when you're under stress, your body doesn't work very well, especially your immune system. And so it helps you right that ship so you can still sail in the right direction, okay? And, all right, so the question here is THC, CBD, or the whole plant? What do I do? Because there are so many choices. And especially, like I said, if you walk into a retailer, dispensary, it's just confusing the heck out of you. So here are some studies, and it's interesting. So the studies up to now, except more recent studies that have come out that have now introduced some more information into the system, compare the anti-tumor effects of THC alone, this is the psychoactive one, compared to whole plant extract, and found that the whole plant cannabis extract was more effective than the THC alone, right? Now this is in cell cultures, animal models, so estrogen receptor positive, ER positive cells, and a triple negative breast cancer, and so forth. So again, what we need to keep in mind is that these are laboratory studies that show, the whole plant extract worked better than just THC alone, right? Now, why? Potentially, the reason it's been looked at is terpenes. Terpenes, what are terpenes exactly? Terpenes are like these volatile compounds, organic compounds. They give you the smell, the aroma. So I know that you all know about aromatherapy, right? You all know aromatherapy, essential oils, lavender is one of those. And by the way, the smell, the wonderful scent of lavender, that is a terpene that you're smelling. So these are volatile oils, all terpenes. This is what gives hemp this skunk smell. Oh my God, it's like, ah. But then, you know, there are some plants, again, they're breeding them different species, and so they smell great. I smelled one the other day that smelled like apple. Like, how's that possible? So, again, they're bred to increase certain terpenes, right? That's what these are. And by the way, there are many terpenes and so here you go. I only list a few terpenes that are found in cannabis, right? So there's nerolidol, for example. And that, by the way, all these terpenes, remember, go back to your aromatherapy, essential oil, they all have therapeutic properties. Like this one is antifungal, antibacterial, it's a sedative, and it's anti-malarial, for example. Limone, this is kind of lemongrass type of scent that you smell. It's antidepressive. It's anti-anxiety, it helps with gastric reflux and antifungal. So you can see, I'm not going to read all of these, but you can kind of go down the list and go, oh my God, each one of these have all these wonderful properties, right? So whole plant contains myriad of terpenes that gives it what they call entourage effect. I love this because entourage means that when different terpenes are combined with different cannabinoids, the result is an entourage effect, which means that there's a synergy. So you got the whole thing. And this is exciting to me because Chinese medicine, we've been doing polypharmacy for thousands of years. This is what Chinese medicine does. We combine herbs into a formula in order to get the entourage effect from all the various species of components. All right, the tale of two species, indica or sativa. There you go, oh my God, I mean, this is getting more complicated. Now, by the way, it's very complicated. I'm trying to simplify for all of us here, right? So anyway, so just remember there's two major strains. There's actually many strains, but two major strains, right? One is called indica, deep relaxation, sativa, a little more energizing. So, you know how, remember back in the 70s, or maybe you just did it yesterday, you go to party and people are smoking pot or they're eating their brownies, and some people are just like checked out. Oh man, it's okay with me. You can always tell they drive like an old lady on the freeway. And you're like, what's wrong with you? I mean, it's, you know, it's a freeway. You're going at 35 miles an hour. You know they're stoned. I mean, and by the way, you can get a DUI for that. And then there are people who smoke and eat their brownies, and you can't stop them from talking. It's like, enough. I've had it. I'm not getting indigestion from hearing. So that they probably had this sativa thing, right? So be careful. You should ask, like, what is in this brownie here? Huh? Yeah. All right. So anyway, so you have to... But you know what they're finding now is they used to think as the CBD content, but now studies are showing it's actually terpenes. The type of terpenes, the amount of terpenes in each of these strains that are actually giving you either more energy or less energy. Okay, the correct dosing. This is very complicated. This is why you need to work with people who are researchers who have clinical experience. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I don't sell this. What I do is I help consult, get the patient the right dose, and refer them out to the reputable, producers, right? So once you understand CB1, CB2, the difference and where it hits your body, then you know that this is what you can figure out what it is that you want. Now, THC and CBD, the THC binds more to CB1, the brain, remember? And the CBD is more the CB2, right? I know that sounds confusing, right? CBD, CB1, CB2. But receptors, remember, receptors, right? The more THC is present, the higher psychoactive property, right? So it'll increase your appetite, reduce inflammation, relieve stress and anxiety, and induce a relaxation response. This is the blissful high you get. The more the CBD, the better for autoimmune disorders, gastrointestinal issues, Crohn's, colitis, arthritis, psoriasis, and cancer, right? So this is kind of a rough understanding of what, so you have THC, CBD, sometimes the pure CBD is preferable because you don't want to have that effect, the psychoactive effect. During the day, you're driving. You definitely don't want to have THC in your system, right? Do not operate a heavy machinery when you're under the influence. Very important. But is there actual, therapeutic value of THC? And the study says yes. But CBD, for example, so then what you do is you do ratios. You see these ratios? 20 THC, 1 CBD. What do you think that's going to do to you? Oh my God. You're going to be high as a kite. And then what about this? 1 THC, 20 CBD. Probably won't feel much at all. Just relax, right? And but again, dosing. Sometimes we go pure. But the ratio is very important to really learn how to do that. With someone who can help you supervise your process. Drug-herb synergy interaction. Very important that you also know this. It is safe, but it's not completely safe, right? So we need to kind of take a look and see. First of all, synergy. Well, the good news is this. Studies show that, in fact, there is no conflict with chemotherapy drugs. That is huge. That is huge. So you got gemcitabine, you've got Paxil, you've got, 5-FU, you've got, so a lot of these chemo drugs and so forth, there is no conflict. So that's the good news. It also has been found to be synergistic with tamoxifen and these estrogen blockers, aromatase inhibitors, so forth. So far, we haven't unearthed evidence that it would interfere with your cancer treatment. So this is a very good news. And there are a number of oncologists on the west side that I work with that are very excited about the results that the patients are getting. Okay? Now, despite its safety, right, it actually inhibits the activity of an enzyme called cytochrome P450. So that's important to know, because there are a lot of drugs that actually, if you interfere with this cytochrome P45, this enzyme breaks down the drugs. All right, so like blood pressure drugs, heart drugs, and various drugs. And so what happened is that if these drugs don't break down, they stay in the system too long, they accumulate. And now you've got either the drug that is not being accessed correctly or at the right time, or it's too much or too little. It can be a problem. So that's why you need to work with someone who understands, oh, you're on these pharmaceuticals. Okay, 2 of them, the cannabis or the CBD can potentially interfere. So that's why you can't just go out and try to dose yourself or go to the retail dispensary. You need to work with professionals who are trained. And in our university, we actually have a program that we train doctors of Chinese medicine to understand the dosing parameters. There are regulatory compliance, and we need to make sure that this stuff is clean, right? Because there's a gold rush. It's become a huge business. Huge business, California. We're producing so much of it that we're exporting it to other states. And therefore, there goes the taxes. Whoops. Politicians didn't anticipate that. So they have to be tested, and they have to comply and verify the amount, the content. So as of January 2018, there are all these testing, heavy metals and mycotoxins and terpenoids and all that. So again, if you're buying it, you got to ask for, can I see the certificate of test? And do you comply with, are you certified? Do you comply? So anyway, here's the final word, right? Cannabis is not a panacea for cancer. I don't want you for a moment think that you're going to rely on this for your cure. All right? However, research shows potential as an adjunct to whatever else you're doing. It is a mostly safe, right, adjunct, except for interfering some of the medication with the cytochrome P450. Always consult your doctor before taking cannabis or hemp products, right? Because again, he or she needs to know and notate it on your medical records so that if in case there's interaction or something, they'll know. Be sure to work with expert on correct dosing, like I said, and selection of lab-tested and certified products. This is very important, lab tested. So again, if you fell asleep through my entire lecture, don't worry. You can read my book. Anyway, so that's my story. Thank you very much. I hope it's pretty good. You're all still awake. So I think now we have testimonials or experience to be shared by two people here that have actually used CBD products or cannabis. Please.
Well, I love the presentation because... hello? Okay. So I love the presentation that you did, Dr. Mao, because all the stuff that you said I can't. The FDA does not allow me to say certain things, like I can't even combine cannabis and why we're here, but I can talk about hemp-based products. So the products that I use are hemp-based, so as you were saying, industrial hemp. And it has a very small percentage of THC. So if you're looking for more of a relief of discomfort, CBD would be better for me. So, for example, when I was first diagnosed, I had sharp shooting lightning bolt spasm type feelings from my back, from my hip, shoulder blade, chest plate. Basically, I'm very holy. I have lesions from my head all the way down to my feet, which means that also my bones are very fragile. My husband calls me a porcelain doll because he's not allowed to hug me very tight. People can't, come up to me and go, "Oh, hey, Doreen, how's it going?" Because I go. CBD helped me manage that. Last year, I was walking with a walker and a cane. This year, I'm walking all by myself. From my perspective, I'm not allowed to talk about dosing, so if you talk to me about CBD, you'll hear me say drops, because I'm not a medical professional. I can't say any of the things that Dr. Mao said about how it helps. I can only share my experience with you. The other areas that I would like for you to take away is what to look for in CBD. Because there are really good CBD out there, and there are some that are just not good at all. Read your ingredient label on the bottle. If it has any sort of words that you really can't say, probably not pure. Probably manufactured someplace else, not from the actual hemp plant. Definitely want to buy it from someone who has the third-party certification and testing done. And you need to ask them for it. If they can't provide it, do not put it in your body. The other part is, if it says it's water, mostly water, then read how much CBD is actually in it. We saw one today that it was like 10 milligrams of CBD, and then the rest was water. But the bottle itself said 300. So those are the things that as a consumer you need to know about, because it is unregulated. It is the Wild West. I'm not here to talk about one is better than the other, just on what to look for and what's helped me. The other area is when you go in, there's 3 different types that you can get. You can get an isolate oil, which is THC free, but it's only CBD. You only get the CBD. There's a full spectrum, which is all of those cannabinoids and turpentines and everything, and you get the entourage effect. I can't say all those words. There's also a broad spectrum, which also gives you all of the cannabinoids and turpentines, but not the THC. So when you go in, understand what you're wanting. I think that's kind of it. I'm gonna let you share about the THC side, and I guess maybe leave open time for questions.
Okay, I agree wholeheartedly with actually both of you, but I think everybody needs to be educated about the different kinds of cannabis that there are. It's very dangerous to just go off and use a little and not know whether you're using sativa, indica, hybrid, CBD. They will all affect you differently. If you tend toward anxiety, do not use sativa, at least not right away and not a large amount. If you're going to try edibles of any kind, whether it's drops, it comes in a million different forms, in patches and every kind of food you can imagine, and drinks and pills. The rule is start low, go slow. Do not eat more because you don't feel anything, because it can take 2 hours. And by the time that catches up to you, you will be sorry. This really is not something to play with. It will make you feel sick. It can't kill you, but you will be sorry. Yes. I use all different forms. But one thing that I know that my doctor doesn't know is that it can interfere with Ibrance. So I know a lot of people are on Ibrance. The doctors, the oncologists don't know. They're not educated about it. They don't take the time to learn, and it's our responsibility to know what we're doing. This is not something to play with. It is kind of a fire. And you need to be careful. And so you need to be the one that knows what you're going to interact with. And one of the rules of thumb is that, similar to blood pressure medications, if you look it up and it's got a grapefruit warning saying don't use with grapefruit, like blood pressure medications, you need to be careful, because it will raise the amounts of these drugs in your system. Let's see. It can be a guideline. The warning for grapefruit can tell you if you're going to have trouble with CBDs, really. THC generally is not a problem with interactions. Is that correct?
Yes. Actually, the grapefruit thing is the same as the cytochrome P450. So that's why it basically... So the grapefruit warning with high blood pressure medication is the same scenario, just like the cytochrome P450. It's the same scenario. So that's why it can dysregulate the amount of medication that's getting into your system. So what Linda's saying is, and I completely agree with her, I mean, it's like, you know, the thing about the Ibrance thing, although the studies show, you know, that it's generally safe with most chemotherapy drugs, there are new drugs that are coming down the pipeline, like immunotherapy, that we have no idea whether it's going to interfere or not. So it's important that you do your research, talk to the doctor, let them know that you're doing, you know, you plan to do it, and it's so important that you work with your practitioner.
The CBD is the one that can interact with the Ibrance. The THC may not do that, but the THC can do other things. It can kill your T cells. So you don't want too high THC unless you're HER2 positive or triple negative. THC has been shown to help those situations. But you do need a practitioner to talk to. There is a website, a Facebook group called Fighting Breast Cancer with Cannabis. And there's all kinds of information in the notes section at the beginning that can give you all kinds of little details like that. But it also can refer you to cannabis oncology nurses for a consultation. If you don't have somebody like Dr. Mel that you can go see, you can do this even over the phone with them. And it costs a little bit less than $200 usually, well worth the money. You'll get more information than you know what to do with, but it'll make you safer. They will look over your medical history and give you sound advice about how to dose, how much to use, how to advance the doses, the kind of things you're looking for in products. There are a million products. It is dangerous, the kind of things that are being made, and nobody really is regulating it.
What about the phytoestrogens, the plant estrogens in cannabis and or CBD and ER-positive breast cancer?
I haven't heard that to be a problem.
The research hasn't, yeah. So, there's a lot of foods that have phytoestrogens. I want you to know that, for example, soy is probably the biggest thing, and yet soy has been shown to be protective against breast cancer. I mean, if we look at very, very large demographic studies around the world, and Dr. Christy Funk, who some of you may know, for years we had the debate going back and forth. She was anti-soy and phytoestrogens until she read all the demographic studies and realized that actually soy is protective. And so she has it all over her new book. I think the book is called Breast and Owner's Manual. But so simply because a food has phytoestrogen, which, by the way, just about every bean, every legume, and turmeric, and everything that you've probably been eating and taking all have phytoestrogen. So I think sometimes it's dangerous to make a blanket statement that, wow, anything phytoestrogen I shouldn't, use. The phytoestrogens bind up receptor sites in your body, and so it occupies that site. So another bad estrogen comes along, doesn't have room to bind to, and therefore doesn't proliferate the cell. And so it is very interesting. So if we look at like Asian population, women in Asia, like China and Japan, have very low risk for breast cancer. The same people move to America, and their breast cancer rate goes up to the same as what's here in America. This phenomenon is called cancer shifting. And in fact, now they're eating a whole lot less soy than they were back in Asia. And so there are very large demographic studies that show that actually this is one of the reasons why, and I don't mean to be, culturally insensitive, but Asian women have smaller breasts. This is one of the reasons, you know that, right? Because they eat a whole lot of beans and soy, and what that does binds up the receptors, the receptors in the breast tissue, so that other estrogens can't bind to it and proliferate, make it grow. If you look at Western countries and you drink a lot of milk and eat dairy, that will increase your estrogen in a big way. And then you get big boobs. And so, again, I apologize if I sound insensitive here, but it's one of the protective secrets of Asian population. Asian women have, because of this suppression of the breast tissue. Interesting, isn't it? If we look at that.
One thing that I heard is that although it has a protective effect while the breasts are developing, once you achieve maturity and your breasts are no longer developing, then it neither has a protective effect nor a detrimental effect. So you have to start it when you're
On one of your slideshows, it showed that cannabis is a cytotoxin, meaning it the cancer cells. How is there a distinction made between normal cells and cancer cells? Cytotoxin is cytotoxin.
It's a good question. You know, we haven't asked the CBD molecule what it does, why it, but you know, there's some. It's a very interesting. I mean, they're still looking at the mechanism of why CBD can actually, you know, sort of stimulate cytotoxic effects in only bad cells, and doesn't seem to, you know, affect the normal cells. And I do think that because cancer cells act very differently than your normal cells. They are ferocious. They've got an appetite. So they are, in order to grow, they have to essentially be, you know, sort of aggressive and feeding. I mean, they're feeding off everything. So I think that's one of the mechanisms from a layman's perspective, that because they're proliferating so rapidly, they basically take up the CBD and it becomes cytotoxic to them, whereas normal cells, they're kind of meandering along and they don't take in that much CBD. So it's quite possible. But again, a lot of these mechanisms are still being studied because in the US we're so behind in this study because we've outlawed it for so many years, and now only in the last 5 years that studies are being conducted. So it's hopefully we'll have more answers for you, but specific mechanism, I'm not even sure. Yeah.
Depends on the dose that you're using. It's okay to use CBD with Ibrance. It's not okay to take large amounts. You should be fine. And you're better off getting a consult from a professional. And I do have one provocative thing to say, and I don't know if Doreen's going to want to shove me off the stage or not. The way that I understand the receptors in the body need to sense a little bit of THC to open.
I mean, you could do it technical, but from what I know, to get the entourage effect, which is the full benefit from the plant, then you need to have a little bit of THC. The legal limit is 0.3% THC. So anything over that, you're going to need to get a card. Oh, no, well, in some states. I'm not here anymore. But anything below, you should be fine. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, the research so far is showing like 1-to-1 ratio of THC and CBD. At least that's what some of the studies were using when they were studying the anti-cancer properties of cannabis in general. But again, they're looking at different combination of percentages, the ratios, you know, whether a small amount of THC or a larger amount is going to be effective. But there are now research that are coming out, new research that are showing just pure CBD actually has just as good anti-cancer properties. And so I think the jury's still out on, okay, what is the best? But, you know, coming from Chinese medicine, I use whole plants. I try to use whole plant for everything, right? Because when I use herbs, I don't actually use just, you know, an extract of a certain things. I try to use the whole plant. So I'm still kind of on the camp of the whole plant extract with entourage effect and the terpenes and all that. But I do recognize that, hey, you know what, some people with specific symptoms, if they have a lot of insomnia, anxiety, and so forth, and they can't sleep, really, a little more THC at night actually will help them symptomatically. So now we're even, you know, we're talking about not just cancer, I'm talking about quality of life here. Because all of you, as I mentioned earlier today, quality of life. How are you going to feel today? I want to feel my best today. And so how do I do that, right? So we just started with vibrating earlier today, right? But you know, this vibrating machines that they're selling you out there, it costs thousands of dollars. That's you know, research shown to increase your muscle strength, muscle mass, and bone density. I just saved you a ton of money. Just get up and just vibrate and move around and shake your booties, and you're gonna feel a lot better and get more calcium into your bones.
Any other questions? I know everybody's so tired, Barbara. No, they are run by stoners for the most part. It is appalling how little the people that work at dispensaries seem to know. Yeah, everybody's shaking their head. Yes, it is really up to you to have a clue what you're asking for. You'll get 10 different opinions at a dispensary, or no opinion at all. They'll look at you like, what are you talking about? You get a consult with a cannabis professional, or you do some reading. Dr. Bonnie Goldstein has a book entirely about this. Dr. Mao's book has a chapter on it. Do some research, and you'll already know more than most of the employees at dispensaries. You can go to the website I mentioned. You can probably just put in Cannabis Oncology Consult, and you'll probably come up with a few people to contact. And I can't believe how many of you stayed this late. It's amazing.
Okay, all right, so this is honor system here, okay? I only have 10 books, so honor system. I want you to write it down a number from 1 to 100. Right now, just write it down. If you don't have a pen, borrow a pen. All right, and so, 5 with the same number? Oh, darn, you just kind of messed up my whole plan here. All right, but you know what we're going to do is let's count, right, as we go along. Because you three are going to throw out numbers and to see who wins. Okay? So have you written down already? You got it? Okay, you got it, right? Okay, honor system here. Here we go. Doreen, what's the first number?
36.
No, 36? That's such an auspicious number. Oh, okay.
27.
27. All right. So you make sure you see me afterwards. I'm going to be at that table handing out the books. And Sharon, what do you say?
52.
Oh, we have a winner. 52. 15. Anyone have 15? No 15? Did 15 leave the room already? All right.
7.
7. You have 7? Wait, how many do we have 7?
Oh, lucky
We have 7, and
lucky
you are 7
7.
also? You have 7?
Oh, look at,
All right,
lucky
so how many
7,
do we have
huh?
now? I lost track. 1, no, that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, so far? We have 5? Who got it? No, I got 10. All right, the next number.
74.
74. Note 74?
80.
80. Do you have... No, 79 is... No. You're one shy from 80. Ay.
Oh, my goodness.
88. There are obviously no Chinese in this room. Jesus. Now, just have to remember, right? The Chinese people are superstitious and they think 8 is the lucky number, so 88. All right? Well, I guess not. All right.
4.
4, no.
98.
99. Gee, what we get?
1.
No one either?
33.
Did you raise your hand? No?
22.
22? Okay, so we're one there, one there. So that's up to 7 now. Oh, and we have one there too? 22? That's 8. I got 2 more books.
Oh.
All right. All right, Sharon, what is it going to be?
6. 6?
6. No, 6? Wait, what was that again? No, someone had your hand raised. Huh? You had 1? Oh, you just one. No, we have to be fair here, right? So, all right, couple more.
42.
42, yay! All right, one last one, guys.
I don't remember what I said. 70. Did we say 70?
70? No 70? Maybe Sharon will give the final number.
21?
You guys don't play blackjack here? You need to go to Vegas right now. Get in the car from this conference, drive, I think it's 3.5 hours from here, and play some blackjack. Come on, people. Oh, boy. All right. All right. 75? No 75. 28. 28, all right, we have it. All right, well, anyway, I'm going to turn it back to Sharon, so see me over there afterwards. And if you didn't win, I'm sorry, but you can get a 20% off code from the flyer there. Thank you.
That was a wonderful way to end the day. Isn't he great? Let's give him a hand. And let's give Doreen and Linda Johnson a hand. Let's give the committee a hand. Let's give a hand to our sponsors. Here they are. City of Hope gives us space. Amgen gave us money. California Breast Cancer Research Program gave us a lot of money. Lilly Oncology, Eisai, and Pfizer. And I thank them, and I hope that they re-up for next year because I have great plans. Now, please, please, please finish your survey, do your homework, drop it off at the desk outside, the registration table. It's been a great day. It's had a lot of challenges. I hope you didn't notice any of the challenges we had. We tried to keep it from you, but there were fires burning behind you all the time. So thank you. I really love you all a lot.